Hello YouTube. In a recent video I decided to make Slobulus from the Madballs, and I wanted to make it pretty huge, so I based it on a basketball. In this video I'm going to do exactly the same, but this time I'm making Hornhead. So I start by tearing a whole load of kitchen paper so it hasn't got any straight edges anymore, and then I paint PVA glue onto the basketball, put a bit of kitchen paper on it, and then paint PVA glue over the top as well. So it's basically paper mache, but the PVA glue has to be really strong. So either use super PVA glue or wood flooring PVA glue. And you can see here I've gone over the whole basketball, and then you just let it all dry, and that gives it a really strong kind of coat. I will go over it then again, so it's had 2 coats of the kitchen paper and 2 coats of the PVA obviously as well. You could obviously, once that's dried, add just another layer of PVA glue if you wanted to make it even stronger. Okay, here you can see I've added the horn, his eyeball, his nose and his lips. And these were all made with aluminium foil, just all squashed up. It's really easy to squash aluminium foil into a shape, and then again just glue them on and then go over the top with the kitchen paper and PVA glue. Really quick, really simple process for getting kind of the rough overall shapes in there as fast as possible. The reason that I made Slobulus for my first one was because I think he sort of sums up Madballs. It's not because he was my favourite, it's just because he sums them up nicely. Hornhead is probably one of my favourites, if not my favourite overall. So I really wanted to make this one, but also I think he's going to look great next to Slobulus. Right, you can see that I've added a Milliput for his teeth and his nose ring and his warts on his nose, and also his iris and his pupil on his eye. But if you haven't used Milliput before, it's a 2-part putty. You mix the 2 parts together in equal amounts and it sets rock hard in about 4 hours, just at room temperature. You don't need to cook it in an oven or anything like that, so it's really easy to use. You can see that I've added some ears to this as well, and the ears stick out quite a bit, and obviously what I'm trying to do is get the overall kind of ball shape as well. I'm trying to maintain that. So I can just add a bit more pressure to the ears and squash them in a little bit, and that's a really good thing that you can do with aluminium foil. If you're not happy with the shape, you can add a little bit more pressure and push it in. Obviously not right at the end if you've added more layers of PVA glue, because it gets really strong, really tough, but at this stage I still can do that. So here you can see I've pushed the ears in, so the profile of him still looks really ball-like, which is what I'm after. You can see all the kind of details that I've added, like wrinkles to the lips. Those will all show up even more once I paint it, but at this stage it's nice to see those. You can see I've added these kind of cheek areas. I've added these stitches down the side. That's one thing I like about Madballs, is these kind of like scars and stitches and things. I've added those little wrinkles underneath his eyes and loads more warts, his sort of upper eyelid and all the bumps around his eye. The upper eyelid might be an eyebrow, but whatever it is, I've added it. Okay, if we have a look at the horn, you can see that I've added these little bumps all the way around the edge of it, but I've also added some Milliput bumps sort of going up to the top of the horn, and they're just sort of adding ridges in there. And then I've gone over the top with the kitchen paper and PVA glue, which has a smoothing effect. So the whole thing, once it's painted, will all tie in nicely. So you can see with the little warts that I've gone in with a ball stylus and I've kind of squashed them onto the head, and that smooths them in, and it also means when I paint over the top with some PVA glue, that will actually help to kind of strengthen them and keep them attached to the head. And also then when they're painted, they'll all smooth in really nicely. Okay, under here I've been working on his beard, and that is just a case of squashing a whole load of aluminium foil into these kind of long thin sausage shapes, gluing them on, and then going over the top again with a layer of PVA glue and kitchen paper. It's exactly the same method that I used to do the hair on Slobulus. Okay, so at this stage he's done and he's ready for painting. One thing I will say is he looks nice at the moment because you can see all the details of him, but the first painting stage is to paint him all black like this, and then he sort of loses some definition because all the shadows, all the deep areas all kind of merge into each other. It's quite hard to see any of the details anymore, but this is just the first stage, and quite often with these sculpts they have to go through bad stages where they look awful first before they start looking amazing. So this is just the way it goes, I'm afraid. So I'm using System 3 acrylic paint to do all of the painting stages for this. And like I say, first stage, just paint it all black. It's worth watering down the black just a touch so that it gets into all those really deep places. Okay, the next stage was to go over it with this kind of maroony colour, and that was all dry brushed over the top. So if you haven't done dry brushing before, you just get the paint on your brush and then really kind of scrub the brush on a bit of kitchen paper, and that dries it off. So basically when you're painting, it's just dusting a very light coating over the top, and it's painting it onto all of the higher surfaces, but it's leaving all of the little dents and things black. This colour that I mixed was a mix of cadmium red, a tiny bit of black to darken it, and then I also used some magenta in there as well. The magenta, it all sort of merges in, but it just gives it that slightly kind of pinky tinge to it. Okay, next I used cadmium red just to paint the gums and his iris. This I've done just with a small brush. I've gone in, there's no dry brushing with this. This is just the paint pretty much neat straight from the tube. And you can see in the iris I just did kind of individual brush strokes radiating out from the center to give that kind of effect. I didn't want the eye to look obviously like perfectly realistic or anything. You could add so much more detail into the eye. I just wanted it to look like the original Madballs. Okay, next I painted his eye yellow. I think I just used cadmium yellow mixed with a little bit of white just to brighten it a bit, and then I've done the stitching and I've done his nose ring just in pale blue. So yeah, just take your blue and just mix some white with it basically. This is not quite as pale as it needs to be yet, but I'll do some dry brushing with an even paler blue over the top of the nose ring and the stitching. Okay, this is the finished stage, and I'm hoping the camera picks up that I've added a slightly lighter blue to the nose ring and the stitching. When you look really closely, you can see the slightly darker blue at the kind of edges. On the eye, I've gone in and I've painted all of the little veins on there, and I've gone with red around the outside. The horn and the teeth I've done in exactly the same way, in that I've painted them yellow ochre to start with, and then I've come over the top with white. With the teeth I've left black gaps next to the gums, and that really kind of makes them pop out more. But yeah, you can see the white was dry brushed onto the teeth, so it gives a nice kind of softening in effect. You can see underneath here everything has been gone over the top when it was finished with PVA glue, just a layer of PVA glue just to kind of make it slightly shiny, but it also protects all the paint. Okay, the whole time that I was painting this, I couldn't wait to position it next to Slobulus to see what they look like together, and as you can see, they look awesome. I'm really pleased with the way this turned out, and I mean, I loved the Slobulus one that I made anyway. My plan is to make at least another one. I've bought another basketball, so keep an eye out for that video. But I'm not entirely sure which one I want to make yet. I'm still thinking about it. Thanks to Milliput for sponsoring this channel. If you haven't tried it, go out and get yourself some. It's a great product. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit subscribe to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.